Hey there. Before we start this episode, I wanted to jump into your ears straight away and let you know how you can support us best with this podcast so we can keep this going. So, the most important thing that when you have listened to this episode would be share, share, share. Spread the word, drop our name, drop us in the conversation. If you see a question popping up somewhere, say, the Damn Parenting Ladies, they have an episode on this. Pop the episodes out, get us into the conversation of the communities. This is the best way to support Eva and me. And give us a like on Spotify, give us a follow, jump over to Instagram, Damn Parenting Podcast. Make sure that you spread the word about what you like, why you like the episodes, and that you spread the knowledge that we are putting out there so it can be heard and received by everyone who needs to hear this. And this is what I just wanted to drop with you before now you can enjoy them chat or an expert episode. So let's see what's going to be on. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Damn Parenting, your English-speaking parenting podcast from Amsterdam. And you know us by now. We are your hosts, Maren and
Eva.
And today we have someone special with us. We have Gabrielle with us. Hi, Gabrielle.
Guys, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. And we will, because it's July and everyone is longing for this summer vacancy to be coming soon, we want to be talking traveling with kids today. And we thought, who better to ask than someone whose name is Jet Set Gabrielle. So she's all over the place, and she is all over the place with her two children. She's an expert on how to travel with kids. And we've been following her on Instagram. I've been secretly going on all your trips with you, watching you going, it's not in a creepy way.
Dark alert.
Yeah. But going on the safaris with you and doing all the fun stuff. So I really enjoy the content that you put out there. And I enjoy that you're very honest with traveling with kids and you share all your tips and tricks and you're an open book when it comes to that. So we thought, let's bring you on and get your best tips and tricks traveling with children, and how also one of the things, how you got into the whole traveling with kids, because this is a big topic that parents have. They love traveling, and then they have children, and then they're like, okay, how's this going to work now? And then some of us just completely let this one go and they're not traveling anymore. Or some of us are like, oh, it's always a big schlep. It's always a big hassle. Or like you and I also like to travel. Say, all right, how can we reorganize this whole traveling? So how did you get into traveling with your children? First one, and then two children. How did you overcome, and what was your thought process of overcoming anxiety and fear and this whole traveling, rethinking of how do we travel as a family?
Yeah, so before I had kids, my husband and I loved traveling. It was something that was really important to us. So when we had our first child, I think it took about a year until we said, okay, let's just start small with beach trips and easy trips that, for a baby, it wouldn't be so much on us. Mind you, because you have the pack and play, the rocker, the bath, like everything, I forgot now, like the stroller, the diaper bag to bring. So even going to the beach was just so much. So something so simple was a lot for the parents, but we figured we still wanted that. And it was important for us as a couple to, take care of ourselves too. So I think for the first 2 years, we just did beaches. And then slowly you kind of just see that certain things you don't need to bring with you all the time. Like after a few trips, then you're like, wait, I don't need all these things that this one influencer said, here's my list. But to be fair, everyone is different. So I would just say like, oh, you don't need that, because another mom probably does need it. And so my best thing, first off, is to decide to go on a trip is start small. Even if it's a weekend away, like at a hotel, practice getting everything together and just kind of existing in a different space, because it is hard, and just taking everything with you is going to give you just so much anxiety, so much stuff, then it's not going to get anywhere. But you have to start somewhere, and then it gets easier, right? So even just a weekend away at a hotel, a different city, I think that's good for the family. And then as they get older, you kind of see again, you like bring less, you see what works for you see what works for your husband too, and your partner, or, who's coming with you. Like sometimes we bring like my mom or my in-laws, and then they prefer things like with the kids. So it just, you learn as you go, I think, is my biggest takeaway from it. But the most important thing is we just kept on going. It was not easy. It was, babies have tantrums, babies cry when they can't nap when they're supposed to nap. And my thing was, my first child was sleep trained. So it was like 12 o'clock and 2 o'clock, go to his room. He was sleep trained to sleep in his crib. And that was so difficult when we traveled because he didn't have his crib. He didn't have, at 12 o'clock, we would be eating lunch. How is this going to happen? So I also learned to be a little bit more flexible, which moved me to, I think your next question is, how did I overcome the anxiety with my second kid? So my second kid came along and, we got into a routine of having my first kid or traveling with my first kid. And I actually thought, I got this, like I'm pro. But then the second child just kind of throws you a curveball, right? And we were where were we? We were in Europe. We were for my sister-in-law's wedding. And at this point, wedding was done and we were traveling with family to see our extended family around France. And it was in the middle of the night. And you just don't know how to handle a tantrum when you're not in your space. So you're like, shh, quiet, like people are sleeping. But then you just realize that they're babies and they're kids and you're their mom. So the best thing you can do is just be the best mom you can. Like the more you panic, they panic, and then everyone's panicking. And it just kind of like take a step back, take a breather. It's not easy. And you just have to know it's not easy. And I always tell like my followers online, don't look at the pictures on social media. But also, you're not going to see the bad stuff because those are my kids. I'm not going to air out their bad days and just be like, this is reality. Or even my bad days. Like nobody wants, for me at least, I don't go on social media to see the negative things. I go on social media to look at, like you said, other people's trips, what they're doing. Oh, that's a nice day today. But you just have to take it with a grain of salt and just know that that's not what it is, because then it's not healthy for anyone. So, and then what was that last question that you said? I forgot.
Actually, mom brain in action here. Our brain saying, okay, we tackled anxiety, fear. I do have one question for you is when you're talking about, like start with the hotel, like the weekends away or whatever. How do you do that when you have nap times with a baby and you take a hotel and you have to close all the curtains, you put the baby down, and then what? Because I'm sitting on a bed in the dark with a child and I shouldn't be on my phone because it's not great for my vision. Or, or they go down to sleep at 8 o'clock and you're both sitting in the room going, well, now what? We don't have those American 2 rooms, hotel rooms here.
Situations. I would say go out for a walk and have them sleep in the buggy or something, because we did that. I mean, hotel wise, we were out in Florida one time and I had 2 at this time. So we only had 1 bedroom because we could all, like in 2 beds that the hotel provides, we could fit, and they're little. So we're not going to leave them in a separate room. But nap time just meant put them in the stroller and take a walk. And that's why they say it's not a holiday. Like if you want a holiday where you're sitting on the beach and relaxing, then that's a whole different type of travel. And that's a different, I guess, step for parenting, because you have to leave your kids behind with someone. And leaving my first was very hard. I think I left him for one night with my mom, and the next day I had her drive him up to me because it was my first time leaving him and I missed him. But then as they get older, if you want a holiday, then you need to take it with your partner or take it with girls or your friends or something else and get your holiday, because a family holiday is not what it's going to be. So yes, if it means taking your baby out and walking him or her in the buggy for an hour so they sleep, that's what you're working towards for the future. Because ultimately now my kids know how to travel. They know the expectations. When they know we have a flight, the cheaper flights are usually at 5 or 6 in the morning. So the night before, they're in their clothes ready to go. And are we going to wake up in the middle of the night? Yes, you are. Like they know that. But we started them so young with these changes that they need to learn to adapt to. And it's hard for everyone. But it comes down to how much do you want to travel and have this experience with your kids. Because for some people it's a lot, and if it's too much, then that's okay. Like you don't have to travel. Then if that's, you can do maybe family trips instead, and then just rent a big house with another family, then your kids can play. And there's these other like organizations actually that have been popping up on my feed. I don't remember them off the top of my head, but usually they're like hosted trips, and there's just one, they do a retreat for families. So you don't even have to plan it with someone that There's like organizations that have they book the villa or whatever area you're in, and like 5 families can book, and they provide the nannies, the food, the activities. Of course it comes with a price, but you can't have a holiday and then parent your kids and then expect to relax. I think that's what people think. And the reality is you go on a vacation with your family, it's going to be hard, but they learn as you go. Or you get one with a kids club if they're a little older. And if they're younger, then you find these organizations that put the holidays together for you. So there's different options, obviously, but I think there's a way to make it work. And it just takes a lot of patience.
What I found so important, what you just said, a big amen to that is the distinction between a holiday and an experience and traveling with children. So exactly what you said, traveling with your children is not a holiday, full stop, but it is an experience. It is bonding. It is traveling. It is exploring. It is going through the life in a different environment, but we should not expect to relax and be refreshed and be recharged after this. We will feel recharged in other fields of like bonding, connection, experience, and these kind of things, but not in my battery is run out and now I'm probably even more exhausted than I was before, but I filled my cup with other things. And I thank you so much for mentioning this, because I think this is like the biggest learning that I have taken away also from traveling with my child. And I only have one, but really making this mind shift of what kind of trip is this? What am I expecting? And what is the difference that I will be feeling after this trip? Will I be relaxed? Will I be recharged? Will I do all this? Then yes, like you said, I will go away alone with my friends. I will book a yoga retreat or what, nothing with my kids. That's for sure. Do I want to nourish myself with experience, bonding, all these? Then yes, I will take my children. So this is, I think, a big, big learning for all parents to really look at this time out. But how is the time out? What is the outcome? And what mindset am I going into? So thank you so much for mentioning this, because I think this is a very big misconception that we think, oh yeah, holiday means relaxing, means recharging, but not necessarily when you're having kids, when you're traveling long distance, when you have time differences, all these kind of things, then this will only add on to the adaptation and all that stuff.
Yeah. And I think the expectations people put on themselves too, because like I share what I learn and do, but I don't push it. And I think sometimes people think that when they see someone and they share what they know, it's like, oh, that my kid should follow that too. But every kid is so different. Like even my two kids are different. So what I do for one kid also doesn't work for the other and vice versa. But then also back to like the holidays, even as a family for experience, like we mix it up with slow holidays and busy holidays. Perfect one is balance of both. When we have enough time, we do both. Like we'll do a day of activities and then a day of nothing. And then a day and my husband knows when he plans these things, if it's 2 days back to back, it should only be that way because there's like time wise or reservation wise, but then I need a day to be. So I think one of our longer trips we ended up in a little bit in a city north of Paris with his aunt. And I think one of the days they were going to go to the city, just like roam around. And I think just my mental capacity, I could not. And I just knew the kids were just so done from being in the car. And so his aunt's house had like a huge backyard of just like, and has one swing set, just grass and then a swing. And so my husband and his family went to the city and we stayed home for 5 hours. The kids were just out there. Like, I don't even know what they were playing with, but they were just using their imagination, taking turns on the swing. I think they just needed that time to just be. And I think even as a parent, you also just need that time to be, whether it's a slow travel or a busier one. You can't pack your itineraries also based on like what you find online. And I think my biggest thing is do your research online to find, itinerary tips, kid trips, whatever, travel hacks, how to travel with a toddler. But just know that when you also expect yourself and you have a list of 10 things, it's not enough. Like trust yourself. Like everyone has like mama bear instinct, right? And that's really what you need. Because I think one time I saw this thing where they had like a beaded box and had a bunch of different squares for like different snacks, right? So I prepped them. I had 2. It was like a 4-hour flight that we had. I had 2 of them for my kids. Well, they picked and chose the ones that they wanted, didn't eat their rest, didn't want the rest. So then in my bag, I have 2 containers of things that just wasted space, where if I just got a small Tupperware, put Chex Mix in there, that would have been better. And then a small Tupper or a little baggie, the reusable ones are great because then you can just like keep using the same one, rinse it out and wash it. That would have been better. So sometimes it's just like what you see sometimes looks so appealing and great, but then the reality is it's just more stuff to take with you on the plane.
Yep, I'm into that. That's so good. Good that you pulled that tooth from me, because I was always like, should I finally get one of these little things? Because I've been doing this whole bag thing, like I'll just throw her favorite snacks in what I know she will eat no matter what, no matter state what she's in. This is the safety thing. But then I thought, but I see all these nicely curated little boxes with all these little things. And should I do this? But now I'm not even going to go down this road. I did.
And I mean, it works for some people. And if it worked the first time for me, then I would totally believe that. And I think that's where it, like I said earlier, it's just everyone is different. And so it didn't work for me. So I'm like, I'm not doing that again. But if it did, I'd be like, you have to do this because it works all the time. So it just, you have to try everything. And then what works the best, that's what you stick to.
That's the problem though. So I did buy that box where you and it turns around. I bought that. I got my family in America to get it. I got them to bring it over with them a couple of years ago. And I'm like, it works. I'm not going to lie. It actually works. We're super happy with it. But again, I'm only putting things I know is a guarantee to be eaten. Yeah. Sometimes there's cucumber, tomato thrown in, but that actually makes it worse because it's then juices flowing around. But it's that thing that, you're trying to, I get fooled, I think is what I'm going to say, is I see the Instagram and I see exactly what you just said, is those people going, this worked for me, because when it does work for you, you're going to blast it. You're going to be like, hey, this is so great. This is so great. So I did get sucked into that and I did buy it. But indeed, there are things that just don't work for me, or I have to take it with a pinch of salt, because the biggest thing for me is most of the social media we are going to see is actually American based and we cannot get them. Or you're having to order it from a website, which I'm not going to state, which is absolute extortionate pricing. Or then you have to find someone who has family in America, is like, hey, by the way, any chance you could bring it back for me, please? So the thing is, this is a problem I do have. So thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying, like, have a recheck of yourself, like, be realistic about it. And equally, you can always get those toolboxes. That's the latest thing, is get the toolboxes. You don't need the fancy brand stuff as well. But the bags, yes, that's the next thing that I was wondering, should I get those reusable silicone bags or something they are? And I'm like, oh, is that the next thing I need to buy? I don't know.
I have to say, yes, they're great, but it's just so much easier to get the disposable ones, because if they're all dirty and you have to wash it, wait for it to dry. Like, I try to use the reusable ones more often, but honestly, if I'm on the way, if we're at a small town and we're out and about and I just bought a box of cookies, and so when you open it, you can't seal it again, and I don't have the reusable, it's then I'm just going to go buy the disposables and then Ziploc the cookies in there. Otherwise, then the cookies are spilling in your bag. It's just a whole mess. So sometimes you have to, but I think I really do like the reusable ones. But also, it's I don't need 10 of them. But with the 4 or 5 that I have, I'm constantly rinsing, washing. So
hanging them out in the washing line, letting it blow dry our grannies used to do.
Well. So it's both work.
I did have a question. Something you mentioned earlier when you were talking about the traveling aspect of things. I do think some parents kind of get locked into this idea of, but kids are free under 2. And so they feel that pressure to be like, I got to take this opportunity. Is there anything you could say to that kind of side of things, where it's like, oh, we wanted to go to Thailand and we don't have to pay for our kids, so let's just go now when our kid's 1 or 1.5 or even younger?
Well, I think we started traveling when my kid was when both of them were under 2, but then your expectations just shouldn't be so high for what you're going for. So when you look at that, let's say, oh, I want to go to, let's say, are we doing Europe or America? Let's say Switzerland, for example, or in America, Yellowstone, right? Both mountainy hiking stuff. Okay, well, if you have someone under 2, don't expect to go see all the hikes and beautiful viewpoints unless you're a family that already does have the camelback water thing. You have all the gear. You're used to just wearing your child. But if it's just a trip that you want to go on because they're free, then maybe your ideal trip would just be, get a little Airbnb in the wilderness, away from all the crowds. That way it could still be homey. You still have the views without the crowds and the tourists. You have a local restaurant you can go visit. You just have to really alter your trip. So I am totally for traveling with littles, because it just gets everyone prepared. The littles start adapting easier to just different time schedules. Parents get used to what they really need to get, but you just have to choose your activities a little bit differently.
Yeah. Also what you just said, you're really pulling out the pearls here, because one thing that you also said is are we that family? Are we that hiking family? Do we already have all that stuff? Or do we just see a nice Instagram post of 2 parents with their baby in their backpack on the top of the mountain, and you're like, oh yes, I want that. But then you look in your closet and you're like, well, I have my slippers. I have my little tote bag. That's what I have as a hiking gear. So this is, I think, very, very important. Also thinking, what
kind of travel family are we? Like, what are the things that we already have? What are the things that we enjoy and not now we're gonna
yodel?
Yeah. And now we're gonna invent this whole new persona of us hiking or us snorkeling or these kind of things where you think this is what you have to do because this is so much fun and other people do it. But very, very wise tip from you of what do we have and what is our vibe? Like what do we enjoy? Yeah.
It actually reminds me of those posts where people are kind of like, it's not as hard as it looks. And it's kind of like, well, it was hard before kids. I'm not hiking up that mountain. So yeah.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
how is it with your
hard, but it's doable, I would say. Like, I do have to say I think when people say it's not as hard as it looks, I think it just takes that bravery and that push, and it's not easy, but I think it'll work.
And how is it with your 2 children? Because I think this is also one thing that parents with 2 children thrive for. Oh, at one point they will entertain each other. How is it? And we haven't even talked about how big the age difference between your children is. Is this something that we can look forward to where they on travel, like, oh, they entertain themselves in the flight, or they go to the lounge, or they go wander off. And then when time is too bored, they just come and we'll just go.
Yeah, so I do have to say, as the kids get older, traveling is easier in a way where they can walk, go to the bathroom by themselves, tell me what they need, tell me when they're hungry. They're not crying. I mean, they're whining when they're hungry, but they're not, in distress. But my kids' age differences are 1.5 years apart. They entertain each other, but also on the plane, they have their routine. So, we do give screen time, but we also limit it because we don't want them. Like one time, one of my kids had a really bad headache, and I'm like, oh, that was because you probably were on your tablet for too long. So we do allow it. There's, more screen time than they usually get, but they also know because of that instance, okay, every hour there's a break. You can take a nap, you can eat, you can sit there, you can draw. And yes, there are times where they're bickering, but you find your routine, right? Like, so for us, it's usually either one kid with one parent, or I sit in the middle, or a parent sits in the middle, and then they're on both sides. I mean, they're brothers or they're siblings. So for the most part, they know what their expectations are, but sometimes it's like, well, I want the aisle. Well, I want the aisle. And I think they also need expectations too. So before flights, even now they're still learning, right? So it's like, okay, this flight, you had the aisle last time, so your brother's going to get the aisle. No, it's like, well, it is what it is. There's another flight coming home. So we also let them know what is expected. Obviously it doesn't always work, but it's a learning thing. That's where it gets easier though, but it's still hard in terms of also, you can't just stick them in a stroller. Like, I miss having the stroller to just put everything in and then put them in and you just walk at your own pace. I do miss that. But now in terms of like planning lunches, no naps, that gets easier. But now they also have an opinion. So it's like the activities you choose. I don't want to walk. I don't want to do this. But it's also fun though. Like, I think this age, like we did South Africa early this year, and that was one of our bucket list things before we had kids. They were up for those safaris for like 5 days straight at like 4 a.m. And we told them we had to be up early, and we told them the expectations, but also we didn't do it the whole day. So we also listened to our kids and their needs. If we're up at 4, we were back in the hotel for lunch by, I think, 11. And then the rest of the day was theirs. The pool, what do you want to do? So it's not, I think that's another thing too, is the balance between what you want to do as a parent and listen to your kids. There's certain platforms like, what is it? There's TripAdvisor. No, not TripAdvisor. There's Get Your Guide. There's another one like that, but they provide a bunch of activities, right? So you can pop on and you can just search a whole bunch of things and see what's family friendly. So when we went to Cape Town, we just did a speedboat around the
harbor.
What's it called?
Beach?
Yeah, around the harbor. And they thought that was fun. And so we kind of try to balance it both with what we like to do, what they like to do. Park breaks are great. So if we do something that we wanted to do in the morning after lunch, the day's all theirs. So, and then that makes traveling for kids also not like, we never get to do what we want, or.
So that's something you mentioned there. So if you are like, hey, we're getting up before in the morning, are you putting them to bed earlier?
Same time. So my kids still like, before they were a little older, like now I think they went to bed around 7. And then now they go to bed around 8. So we try to put them around 8. So I think it's still the same time, but we just take it easy on them. And then I just know also I've learned is like, this is for my kids. After about day 3 of 4 or 4 about being busy, it's like they just have tantrums. You're tired, just like adults are. So I expect it now. And that's usually around those days is when we don't plan anything. And that's like, what do you want to do? Do you want to go to the park? Do you want to stay home and just play? Like even if we stay in the hotel or we usually Airbnb on like longer trips. So if you want to stay in the place and just pretend it's home, play with your toys, then that's what we do. Because I feel like they just need to get it together. We all do. We all need to reset and then we can be fine again. But for my kids, it's like 3 to 4 days after either jet lag or busy itineraries or travel, I can expect a rough day.
But that's also what it's about, holidays or traveling is also having these leisure days where you don't have anything and you just float and you maybe go out for breakfast, or you just like, we're just enjoying our company as a family in a different environment. So it's also very important to not pack every second because we have to squeeze everything out because it's just going to lead to tantrums on each side. It's not going to increase the patience on any side.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, what is your favorite way to travel? Is it by train, plane, car, or walk? I doubt that one, but.
So with it, like we've taken a lot of road trips actually within Europe because cost-wise by car for our family of 4 is cheaper. So I guess it depends how long we have. So usually for the shorter breaks, we fly, but for the summer breaks, depending also where we're going. So one time, let me see. One summer we drove to Italy, Switzerland, scooped down and went back up and then came home. And then another time we drove to the Alps, swooped down to Italy, came up through all of France to visit my husband's family, Barcelona, and then and then all the way home. That was a long one, but we just had the time to do it. Otherwise, I think we prefer to fly over trains, but I do have to say we haven't really done trains like we should. Like we have a friend that did like Austria, Germany, like that whole area on a train, Italy. I haven't done that yet. And the kids have just gone on the train to like Cologne or within the Netherlands. Those are easy. And then I've done a train to Paris multiple times, but I think that one is like the one that we haven't tried yet. And then we fly a lot only because when we do long haul travels, we use points, which helps us. So I also tell everyone that it's kind of unfortunate that in Europe, like
don't get us started. My American husband is also like, what is up with the credit cards here? What is up with this whole point? We could be doing all of this. I'm like, yeah, I know.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not as great. And if you have an American, able to get an American card and obviously use it smart, there's just so many more perks. And that's how we get our long hauls. Like it's expensive if you were to pay cash out of pocket. And I tell everyone, like when we, like our South Africa, that was on points. We're going to Tokyo this summer, it's on points. It offsets the cash value that you have to pay. But within Europe, obviously like EasyJet, Ryanair, those ones they don't have points, obviously, because you can't have points here. So those ones we'll just pay for. But then that's also when you do the price thing, it's like, well, plane or train, then it's ultimately kind of like the same-ish, depending on when you book the train. And then when we do fly, it's like quicker, just with the time that we have. So we still want to try like a summer where we take trains throughout Europe, and that's the way that we travel. That's still kind of on our list to try out. So I can't really give my, opinion about it because I haven't done that yet. But plane wise, I think we've done that quite often. So pretty comfortable with that.
You just mentioned Ryanair and EasyJet. Have you done them?
Yeah, we've done EasyJet, Ryanair, Transavia. We usually fly the budget airlines, to be honest, within Europe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because they're the 5 a.m. flights.
Yeah. Yeah.
And is there anything, so we talked about now being at the destination, traveling, is there anything when it comes to packing that you have the golden tip? Are you using these packing cubicles? What's your travel hack? Like what's your packing hack?
It depends on what I need. Honestly, I've used everything. Like everyone has their one thing. Like sometimes I don't even use any of them because I feel like I can fit more without these packing cubes or the vacuum bags. If anything, I use vacuum bags the least. I only use them if I have to, only because I don't like how everything just gets so like wrinkled and unorganized. And then you have to like open a bag when you get your destination. It just doesn't seem as organized for me. So I do have to say the thing I use most are packing cubes. I do use those almost every time. But sometimes if I have to pack a lot in a small luggage, if I can fit more without it, I just do that. We are a non-check-in family if we're flying within Europe, because obviously check-ins they add to the cost. But also, I don't like knowing that my stuff can get left somewhere if we're going to leave that city and then leave somewhere else. So when we do our like longer trips, we usually hit multiple cities in one holiday. But like, what if you leave there, then your luggage gets to the airport and then it's just a hot mess. And so I've learned to just travel with the rolling carry-on. We have done trips with all of the kids with just backpacks, but I do have to say, if like we went to Finland one winter, obviously that was impossible. So we did check in one large bag for the jackets for everyone. So we don't check in for everyone. So, I mean, you have to be realistic, but for the most part, if we can fit in what's included, it works. So then planning that though, we choose Airbnbs with washer and dryers. In South Africa, we ended the trip in a hotel that didn't have a washer and dryer. And I didn't really want to have to go to the laundromat. So this is something I think I saw it, but I got this foldable bin. So I just dumped it into the car seat bag. And then these sheets that dissolve in water, they must have been around. Like, it was my first time learning about them this year. And so what I would do is I pop open the bin, put, I don't know, a few socks or whatever dirty clothes in there, put the sheet in, kind of rinse it up and then I would hang dry them. It worked better when you had a balcony in the heat. Didn't work so well in a hotel room. It was like damp, so you had to like blow dry it. So it was kind of a pain in the butt. I would say I'd recommend it just depending on where you're going.
Let's get into then a few of the tips as we wind up here. So what are your go-tos? What are your must-sees? What are your for your kids, like what travel things are you like, look, if you bring this will bring peace of mind?
Okay, so packing wise, a car seat bag that has wheels. We've done the whole backpack car seat bag. That one was a hot mess, especially when you're trying to remember that with the kids and everything. So we've used, basically it has 4 wheels. Don't get the 2-wheel one because if your partner's tall or if you're tall, it doesn't angle properly. So get the 4-wheel one and you can just drag that through the airport and roll it into check-in. And then you can just stuff it with whatever doesn't fit in your luggages. That's my one thing that I've had ever since they were kids. And then for them, snacks is just go to the grocery store because you don't want a hungry, no matter what age, toddler, child, kid, teen, granola bars, or I mean, even just something that you don't normally always give, like fruit snacks, or even just like a lollipop that will fix them until you can get a meal. Lollipops for kids on flights, on takeoff and landing, kind of distracts them. My one kid gets motion sickness. And so I think now on flights, we give him, I don't know what the Dutch equivalent is, but it's kids Dramamine in America. So it's like a motion sickness thing. I always have it with me. Someone told me one time, like on Amazon, you can get these little travel plastic nausea bags. And we luckily haven't used them. But there was one time where I had the Ziploc and we were about to board the flight. And then my kid just had an episode and I just took that Ziploc back, hit him. So I think you just always be prepared. And my other thing, and flight attendants will probably love this, is I always have a disposable Ziploc for trash. So on the plane, I stuff every wipe, every wrapper in that bag. So when they collect it, I just give them that bag. Because I feel bad too when I'm like digging around, I miss stuff, when there's just a hot mess on the front, even for my stuff. Like I don't want all my trash where my iPad is and stuff. So I always stuff Ziploc bags too as my trash can and then give it to the flight attendant after.
Can you then finish up here and let us know what are your favorite places that are kid friendly that you're like, you know what, we went to this city, it was awesome. We went to this beach, it was awesome. We went to this country, we just found it so super kid friendly.
I think Europe in general is kid friendly, like all the countries we've been to, but I would say any beach city is just very easy. Spain is, Portugal, even with the hills, like everyone's just so friendly with the kids. Like we were in line and my kids weren't even babies and they told us that we could go into the family line because they're kids and we can enter the museum. I didn't even ask. I thought my kids were too old to even qualify for that, but they just, pushed me through. Italy, depending on like the town, just it being kid friendly, like so Positano has a bunch of steps. So that's another thing, is do your research. So if you want to go to Positano, like we took my kids, they were 4 and 6, probably pushed it a little because going up and down the steps was a little bit hard, but they did it. And it wasn't even hard for me. But then if you go to Puglia, like the south of Italy, it's just all flat, sandy beaches. So then they have a good time. But I think overall, like the countries the countries I've been to that are in Europe have been very, very family and kid friendly.
Any cities that stand out to you?
Marbella, Malaga, the south of Spain. We've done that twice and we just love it. There's actually even a playground right by the Malaga airport, So if you're there early, it's huge and you can just see the planes. It's shaded. So you can see the planes take off and land and then just hop to the airport. We also have, I think more, again, American credit cards have lounge access. We also like to go to the lounge and just feed them whatever to keep them until like the snack break. Because also when you pack snacks, they're going to eat them all, right? Like right before the flight. They're like, I'm hungry. And so that's also just tell them their expectations. You can have one and then the rest on the plane, or you're going to have nothing when you land.
Thank you so much for spreading your knowledge with us and giving us these insightful tips of practical tips, but also more the psychological side of traveling with children and how to switch your mindset. I hope that this has eased some of these parents out there listening when they hear traveling and all of they can think of is a huge anxiety attack and they don't know how to handle this. So this was super insightful. Thank you so much for spending the time with us. And if you want to hear more from our experts coming on every Wednesday, we have an expert episode, and every Monday, even I have the damn chats happening. You can catch us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. We're also on Instagram, Damn Parenting Podcast. And of course, we will put all of Gabrielle's info also in the show notes. So you make sure to give her a follow and see where her family is traveling this summer. If you want to help us spread the word, share and like this episode, give us a rating on your podcast player. We will hear you on the next episode. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you guys.